And ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Hello, I'm Thomas Carruthers.
I'm Jay Reeve.
And today is our sixth episode or something like that. Something like that, of our Twilight Zone rundown. We're doing our top 50 favourite episodes. They are currently in no particular order. However, we are ordering them as we go. Our current ranking is, let me just double check. I won't be able to do, I'm going to say the current ranking now because we're not going to be able to do it when we get to like 25 episodes. Our current ranking is 6, Where Is Everybody? 5, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, The Masks, Time Enough at Last, It's a Good Life, and then Walking Distance, which will be the last episode we do in this 50 episode run. And is both of our favorites, and so is immediately at the top spot. Who knows, it may come down, it won't on my end, but we'll see. Today we're doing In Praise of Pip, which is the 3rd episode that Bill Mumy was in. We're doing all 3 of them, and it was the 4th Jack Klugman episode. I'm just gonna double check that, but this just capitalizes on the cuteness of Bill Mumy, whereas It's a Good Life and Long Distance Call, which we're going to do, sort of capitalize on the terror.
I think you having me watch this straight after It's a Good Life was
an interesting choice, yeah. And probably coloured it a little bit for you in a different way. Yeah. We're doing 3 of the Jack Klugman episodes, In Praise of Pip, Death Ship, and A Passage for Trumpet. A Game of Pool is fun. Jack Klugman's IMDb trailer is this Hanukkah comedy with Schmidt from New Girl in When Do We Eat? And I keep getting distracted because there's Schmidt from New Girl in full Hasidic dress. I keep getting distracted. But Jack Klugman is delightful. Now, you sort of let slip on our last episode, you'd watch this one, and that not necessarily that you weren't a big fan, but it didn't blow you away.
No. I was not a fan. No.
Entirely.
No.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the only part that I really liked was Jack Klugman's performance. I really loved him as Max. And then obviously Bill Mumy again he's always good.
Little Bill Mumy.
Cursed child.
So I wanted to talk about this episode because it's the favourite of Anne Serling, Rod's delightful daughter, and she has often talked about in interviews, and Rod's often talked about it, how this is a very personal episode for him, and they would often go to the fairground themselves. Rod Serling nicknamed his daughter Pop, not Pip, but the final image on screen, which fits the narrative, was also a personal message to his daughter. So it's a very personal episode for Rod, and also I just want to talk about Jack Klugman, because I think he's sensational. This is probably his best performance. Death Ship has some good stuff, but this is a delightful little arc. I also think structurally it's interesting. There is not even a glimpse of fantasy or anything, even up until the ad break. Like Time Enough at Last is normal, and as we talked about, is just a guy who just can't get a break. But then just before the ad break, we have the atomic bomb. So but this doesn't even have this. He just walks into an empty fairground, and then it's when we come back from the ad that we see the ghost vision, liminal space purgatory 10-year-old version of Pip. So originally the script was supposed to be in Laos, but the network had Rod Serling change it to Vietnam, which leads to I don't know if it was a studio first or a TV first, but this is 63. You know, presenting Vietnam and also presenting that Vietnam's not, well, as we all know, Vietnam was they call it the first televised war. There was no, you couldn't make any propaganda. I mean, they tried, but you couldn't really do any propaganda anymore because people were seeing the images live. They'd all sit around at 6 o'clock on the news and see the truth of the matter. And that was less of a thing in the early years of that war. Not that it was a war or whatever the official governmentarial declaration was, but by 63, certainly the images and the videos and just the news and the truth of the matter was certainly coming through. So I think it's an interesting choice. As we know in the history of the Twilight Zone was created because Serling wanted to talk about these serious issues, these serious real life issues, in particular certain cases of real life stories, which we'll talk in particular on People Are Alike All Over. And he just couldn't get it past the censors, couldn't get, this was a time, I mean, TV is still fundamentally about advertising and the ad breaks. However, this was a time quite literally where the doors were being kept open by those sponsors. Every single show had its own sponsor. And Twilight Zone had a series over the course of its 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
But this was a period, and of course he then turns to telling these stories through the guise of science fiction, through fantasy, as so many writers have done before him. So I think it's a rather interesting choice that this just presents Vietnam as it is. It's not some unnamed war. I mean, it's the first thing we see, this blunt title card.
Yeah, that got me probably pretty excited for the episode with it opening with Vietnam. And then it kind of flopped for me. But them having Vietnam, especially in 1963, was pretty like crazy for me.
Well, I think the war episodes of the show are very interesting. The Purple Testament is an episode, I think a pretty underrated episode, actually, that I love an awful lot and that we'll look at. The war episodes are very interesting to look at because obviously Serling was in the war, very, you know, a very long and interesting war career. And for me, the war episodes aren't hit and miss. There's a Question of Mercy, which is an interesting episode where Dean Stockwell sort of, I think he either falls asleep or just wakes up or whatever, and then suddenly he's Chinese and he's on the other side. So it's not aged very well, but it's an very, very intriguing and well-written episode. Because obviously that's just a great premise. They should have hired a Chinese actor, but it's just a great. No, it's Dean Stockwell with the pinned back eyes. Yeah. He wakes up and then he goes, "Oh, what's happening?" And then everybody goes, "Come on, get out!" And then he's on the other side of the war, and he goes, "Oh, maybe everybody's good." And obviously, you know, great idea, very well written. You know, we look at it now differently. But that's an interesting episode. We're not doing it in our top 50. That's a good episode in itself. The Purple Testament, I think, is the best of the war episodes. And I think you're onto something, saying that you're quite excited and then let down because a full-blown NAM episode, a full-blown exploration. Because I was thinking maybe, you know, it's its own little twist, but the ending of this episode sort of completely undermines, in a way, the Vietnam experience. I mean, I'm not a veteran. Every veteran's experience is very different, but something of him shuddering, maybe, or something, when he asks at the end, when he picks up the gun from the rifle, and it's, "I'm a child again, but I can never go back to being a child. I've been given my second life, but everything that I thought I was coming home for is dead. I mean, that's an entirely different episode to do, and wouldn't work as an ending to this one. But it was an interesting notion that I thought about.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I think excellent casting, it goes without saying. I think Klugman's believable as these two, as the father of these two. And I think that Bobby Diamond, who plays the older version of Pip, and Bill Mumy are pretty believable as older versions of one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
It says, yeah, it says on the IMDb trivia, perhaps the first scene in American television. There's no way really of chronicling that. I mean, I'm sure somebody has.
Is that about Vietnam?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says on Wikipedia that it wasn't, but it commonly is like
seen that way.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can make the statement that it's one of the first mainstream. The Twilight Zone was a show that was seen by an awful lot. Well, that's the point, isn't it? It's seen as a major success now, and it was a minor success when it was on, and constant struggles and all that. This is from the final season of the show. This was actually the opener for the final season, and it's an interesting opener. It's not like got a cracking twist. It's one of the more human drama, family-based episodes, relationship-based episodes, which is an interesting opener. I mean, the television landscape's changed so much that the idea of a season opener and seasons and all that, it's probably wasn't even.
It's hard to do that with an anthology series as well.
Well, that's another thing. Yeah. I'm a huge fan. Me and Will are huge fans of Inside Number 9, another anthology series. And we often talk about, what's the last episode going to be? And it's like, how can it, there's no way to, that's the problem.
There's not going to be a finality.
Yeah, you can't have any sort of great finale. We often talked about how the one thing that they haven't done is have Mark Gatiss on, and that will bring the full circle of how the show started with the rope parody episode of Psychoville, and then end it that way. But now Mark Gatiss is on this coming season, so that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen because every actor's only in one episode, apart from Derek Jacobi. But anyway, this is Tom Waits' favorite Twilight Zone.
Oh, really?
According to IMDb trivia, it's because of a close resemblance to his own father. So this relates to Next of Kin, which is also written by Rod Serling. The main plot thread of Next of Kin features the same characters, virtually all the same character names and the same situations. However, the fantasy element introduced in the final third of this story is unique to this episode. So I didn't see Next of Kin, I didn't read Next of Kin, but I'm guessing that it's more of a cosmic thing rather than a fantasy. It doesn't literally exchange his life.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how that would.
I want to read the opening to this episode, the Serling intro to this episode, because to me, this almost feels like a parody of a Twilight Zone. So it's one of the only episodes actually where they say submitted for your approval, which obviously became a bit of a, what's it called? The Mandela effect, where everybody thinks that it was always submitted for you. Okay, submitted for your approval when Max Phillips, a slightly the worse for wear maker of book. It's those wonderful little Serlingisms. I'm not going to just call him a bookmaker, maker of book, whose life has been as drab and undistinguished as a bundle of dirty clothes. Good. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting. And though it's very late in the day, he has an errant wish that the rest of his life might be sent out to a laundry to come back shiny and clean. Oh, okay, so we're going to continue the dirty clothes metaphor. and then he goes, this is to be a gift of love to a son named Pip. And then he introduces Mr. Max Phillip again. Mr. Max Phillips, Homo sapiens, who is soon to discover that man is not as wise as he thinks. It almost feels a little bit like a parody.
Homo sapiens.
There's a very funny Stephen Colbert sketch where he does like, what do you call it? Like deleted Twilight Zone endings, and they're all parodies and all that. And his intros steadily, the way that the Twilight Zone is forced in, get more ridiculous. And he's like, you know, straight down the path, and you take a final left into the Twilight Zone. And then by the end of it, he goes, she's about to buy a pair of glasses from a store. The price, $1.50 Twilight Zone. And I have always found $1.50 Twilight Zone in my head when a couple of the episodes stray into self-parody, whether it's knowing or not.
You just made me realize the amount of times that I am listening to him speaking and thinking, how's he going to say Twilight Zone in this?
Yeah, it's like, because sometimes the outro goes on for a long time, and then you go, wait a minute, how's he going to bring it back around? This is another episode, by the way, that ends with him going, very little comment here.
Yeah.
And then commenting.
Yes.
Both Bill Mumy episodes, because that's how It's a Good Life ends, doesn't it? No comment here, no comment at all.
No comment here.
Just just be on best behavior if you pass by. We talked about the I think so. At what point did the episodes like not work? Not give up strong, because they're only 25 minutes, but at what point were you just uninterested, dissatisfied?
Wait, let me think. I think maybe when you ran away from the Bucky place. For me.
Yeah, because we have the Vietnam.
Yeah.
And then it's just Jack Klugman being a dirty bookmaker for 10 minutes.
Like, oh, okay.
And then he gets shot.
Yeah.
And then he's running away.
That's kind of like, oh.
Yeah. I think
it's
a lot of setup for a 25-minute episode. And then by the time that we get to the stuff that I really like and I think works, which is the fantasy stuff, and with Bill Mumy in the carnival and all that sort of stuff. And even when he's talking to him, and you're 10 years old again, I don't understand. And it's that thing of, the best part of our magic trick, they don't actually want to see what's going on. The prestige. And it's like that thing of, you're 10 years old again, I don't understand, but I don't want to understand. This is all I've ever wanted, is to go back to these carnival days. I mean, it's classic Twilight Zone. It's walking distance. It's Trouble with Templeton. Yeah. But I think this episode brings in another one of the key Twilight Zone themes, which is regret. And we've talked so far about loneliness being the chief overall thesis of the show. That's a bit strong. It's a very strong theme that runs through a lot of the episodes, but regret's there an awful lot as well. It's particularly in Walking Distance, particularly in Trouble with Templeton. But I think sometimes it's a regret of things we've done, but mostly it's just a regret of, it's not necessarily regret, more so a longing for the past.
Yeah.
Which could be seen as a form of regret. And it's, well, no, actually, it's not a regret, is it? The regret is, I wish I had more time there. But that's not a regret, because there's nothing that you could do to change that. You just want more time. You just want the nostalgia. You just want more life.
It's more regrets of things he didn't do with his son.
Yeah. And so the episode, when the episode ends and he's come home, it seems to be that the son, at least, thinks he's had a great relationship with his dad.
Yeah.
There's not like that thing of, I think that's another thing that I think doesn't necessarily work. I think instead of spending 10 minutes bookmaking, have the scene of him leaving for Vietnam, and the last thing they do is argue. Sure, it's cliche, sure, it's cringy or whatever, whichever way, cheesy, but you know, you were never a good dad or whatever, you know, you were never a good dad, blah, blah, blah. Then he goes to Vietnam, then he gets injured, and then there's this beautiful fantasy thing of, I'm sorry I couldn't give you the life you wanted as your father, but I can literally give you life now. Whereas Pip comes back and he's like, you know, he's doing work the gun, not the jaw, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't. It spends so much time on him in the office, like with his boss and the other young guy.
Well, that's the thing. We spend so much time with the other young guy, and we can infer that that's because he
he's probably similar.
Yeah, similar age, has a thing for sons, that's a weird way to phrase it. Cut it. Has an emotional relationship. Like, everybody knows what I was trying to say. Anyway, but like, no, yeah, so it works, but it's not spelled out enough. And it's weird that we're asking for what could be seen as worse writing, but in a 25-minute show, you do need those sort of things. You need those broad strokes, and the best Twilight Zones, as we've talked about, with 6 episodes before, and with 40 more episodes to come. Those Serling and Matheson and Beaumont and the other writers we're going to talk about are so great at those broad strokes most of the time that it's annoying when they're either not there or they do feel ham-fisted. Yeah. But even at the most ham-fisted, they've got to be ham-fisted because there's only 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And especially with a twist, and if you're going to, like with Eye of the Beholder, if you're going to spend 5 minutes after the twist, which is my favorite thing about Eye of the Beholder, but anyway.
Plus, wasn't this wait, actually, before that, I did like that, I mean, it was kind of weird, him just getting up and talking about his son at the window.
Oh, yes.
Like, a serious meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My son. Yeah. Also, how mean is Mrs. Feeney to the kid, to her grandchild at the end? It's like, this little leprechaun kid of mine. I found that very funny. The overall, yes, no, in praise, I think we can. Well, I think it goes without saying, In Praise of Pip currently goes at the bottom of our rankings. I think that's pretty uncontroversial. Not that it's a terrible episode. I seemingly like it more than you. But yeah, no, it goes at the bottom of the ranking. There's a lot still good in it. I mean, even I'm gonna look at the schedule now. I think there's maybe a couple of episodes I'd rank below this, but I can't. No, actually, I think. Well, I mean, I'll see how I feel when we talk about them again, but yeah, this might be my least favorite of the 50. But saying that, if this is your worst episode, if this is your 50th worst episode, you're in a pretty good position.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good then.
Yeah, it's a fun way to re-look at it. Yeah. We've got plenty of Klugman left. We've got one more Bill Mumy. Long Distance Call. Is it my favorite? No, It's a Good Life is definitely my favorite Bill Mumy. But I do like Long Distance Call a lot. I love how dark it is. But anyway, we're gonna oh, it's so dark.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, and it's one of those where the fantasy stuff may not even be fantasy. Oh, I'm a big fan of Long Distance Call. Jay, do you have anything left to say on In Praise of Pip? A delightful little episode for me. Left much to be desired for yourself.
Yes. I think Klugman is fantastic. Yes. My final thought.
No, yeah, big fan of Klugman. Have you seen 12 Angry Men, Jay?
No.
No, very good film.
Did you give it me on DVD? I don't know. Probably.
I think so.
I feel like I saw it.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great film. Klugman's very good in it. Next week. Oh, let's plug next week. Oh, 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 big episode. Oh, so next episode, we're going to season 4. Big difference with season 4 is that due to scheduling and contracts and blah, blah, loads of reasons, they went to an hour long. And that means for me that so many of them don't work at all. They're over long and it's a real shame. We are doing 2 from season 4. Death Ship with Jack Klugman, which we'll do later in the run. But next week we're doing one of my top 5 episodes of all time. You've seen Shawshank, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. This has got Richard Whitmire, Brooks. 1 minute. It is Richard Whitmire. On Thursday we leave for home. James Whitmore, Brooks, and in one of the finest performances the show ever had. Anyway, I can't get excited. That's all I'll say. Get excited. Jay, see you next week. Do 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 do.